Hey there, welcome to the very last lesson in the Peaceful Practices course. You're in Module 4, A Strong Birth, and you're about to start Lesson 2. So let me give you a snapshot of what it is we're going to cover in this lesson. In Lesson 2 of A Strong Birth, we're going to talk about the physical element of pain and how exactly it works so that you know what it is you're feeling and why you're feeling it, and also how you can work alongside it. Not just emotionally and mentally, spiritually, the ways we've been talking about, but particularly we're going to be honing in on the physical element. Also, we're going to talk about how you can respond to pain in some helpful ways. Okay, so let's talk pain. I want you to understand pain. If there was one experience that swirls ominously around childbirth, I think it's safe to say that it is that of pain. Remember, most women who prepare for a natural birth and still get epidurals do so because of fatigue, not pain, which is why I think it's crucial that you preserve energy, as we talked about in the first module, a heartfelt birth, particularly in the first stage of labor and early labor. I think this is why it's so important that you preserve your energy, that you think about how to rest well. Resting in early labor and relaxing well throughout the entirety of your labor is so important. So I think it's safe to say that it is a myth, really, that physical pain is your biggest hurdle to overcome in the labor story. I suggest thinking about it a little bit differently. I think that birth is best thought of as work rather than simply pain. I've written a little bit about this on my website with a blog post called One Myth About Christian Childbirth, if you want to learn a little bit more about why I say that. But I think that your birth strategy should really take this flip in thinking about birth as work rather than pain. I think it should take this into consideration as you strategize your birth plan. So consider this. It's well documented that mental torture is much more effective than simply physical pain or physical torture. The actual anticipation of pain can not only be worse than the pain itself, but can be like giving a microphone to the pain if it does actually arrive. You have had this experience perhaps when you're going to the dentist or you're going to get a shot and you're going into surgery, something like this, and the anguish of thinking about what it might be like is truly worse than the moment of it itself. Recent studies in Canada even suggest that it's possible that the experience of pain associated with childbirth should be reconsidered entirely. Since there isn't generally anything going wrong in our bodies during birth, the way that you might have pain associated with, say, a broken bone or a skinned knee, is it possible that pain has been greatly magnified for women in childbirth by things other than simply the birth process naturally as it is? Things like the mental suffering connected to the fear, tension, pain cycle that we talked about previously. Things like not knowing what's going on. For those who go into birth completely with no information, or perhaps the discomfort from the interventions that they're experiencing or their environment, or the anxiety of those around them fueling their fear, these things are real and can greatly magnify the discomfort or physical pain of labor. So let's begin talking about birth as work, the work of labor or the trial of labor or even the intensity of labor. But I think that it is so helpful to think of labor more like a marathon, let's say, less like a torture chamber. And you've heard it talked about this way, I'm sure of it. I thought I would die, these kinds of things, right? So is labor hard work? Yes. I really don't think anyone, or I should say, I don't think it would commonly be said that labor is easy. Yes, it's hard work. Can it be done easily? Not for most of us, but would you say, when asked how running a marathon is, simply painful, I thought I'd die? No, not likely. And if you did, I would say it's probably more likely that you decided to run a marathon with no preparation. But if you had prepared for that marathon and you had trained for that marathon and you were adequately equipped mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, and you had practiced and trained for that marathon, you would say more likely that it's hard. You would say, I have to train well, and I don't get any guarantees that the race is going to look exactly like I expected it to or like I trained for, but it's intensely beautiful, while demanding, but a rewarding experience, and the work itself even is rewarding. Also, it's important to remember that birth pain is quite different than any other pain that you'll experience in life in a variety of ways. So first of all, its source and purpose is known, and it's a really good one. So if you're battling fear in a healthy way, you're likely to experience less pain or discomfort in labor. Also, the more you know about how labor works physiologically, the less you are to be unsettled by what you're feeling because you know what it is you're feeling. And this makes quite a difference. All right, maybe you've had this experience, right, where you have a headache, and perhaps you don't get headaches very often. And it's unnerving because, first of all, you have to figure out, why do I have a headache? And your imagination can run wild. It could be, have I not had enough coffee today? Is it too much coffee? Is my ponytail too tight? Or is this something worse? Is it the beginning of the flu? Or do I have a brain tumor? Right? And your imagination is likely to run the gamut of all of these things, and simply knowing the why goes a long way to comfort you and help you to respond to the discomfort. And so in birth, if the more that you understand about your body, when you feel a contraction or you feel pressure, you're not thinking, does this mean something terrible? You're thinking, I know what it is I'm feeling. I'm feeling those long vertical muscle fibers shortening and tightening to push my baby gently down and out. Also, the pain of childbirth is a gradual and building pain or intensity, with breaks in between purposely to help you rest. Okay, oftentimes if these breaks are not very long in the beginning, perhaps your labor starts with frequent and intense contractions, it can be a sign that baby's not in the best or ideal laboring position. I would highly suggest heading over to the Spinning Babies website. I find it really helpful to do the 3 Sisters of Balance practices on a daily basis to help mom's pelvis be balanced and baby be sitting exactly as baby should be in an ideal place for labor and delivery. But my point is this. When labor is as it is intended to be, you're going to have long breaks in between your contractions, and they start easier and build up in intensity. It's not the same as when you fall and break a leg and immediately pain besets you at a level 10. And until it is fixed, it doesn't go away. This is not the same experience of labor. This is God's kindness to us and helps us to be able to respond well. Also, remember, we talked about it in the first module, you have hormones to accompany the pain that you don't have at any other time. So when you have a headache, you don't have oxytocin. You don't have all of those endorphins. You don't have catecholamines flowing through your body to help you and to help your body respond to that discomfort. Side note here, though, remember, if you have interventions like Pitocin, The more you intervene in birth, the more you lose some of these naturally occurring assets to help you to respond to labor. And so, again, the more that labor is kept non-invasive, naturally occurring, it is not only safest, but most comfortable. All right, I know that there are times when this is not a possibility, but please know when you're making decisions for interventions that they come along with losses, and they're not all simply gain. And at times you'll have to decide, is the loss worth the gain? And so you have these hormones, these gifts to you that work alongside the pain, often even in response to it. And this leads me to the last thing. It's a productive pain, not an alarm pain. All right, remember that what you feel in labor can be very useful to you, so you don't want to eliminate it entirely, right? So again, this is a different type of pain. When a headache comes on, you begin thinking, what does this mean? What is this about, and how do I solve it, and how do I respond to it? Hopefully in birth, you will not feel that way. You can know that this discomfort is making progress. It's producing something. It's my body doing what it should be doing to get my baby here. Birth pain is helpful. It also helps you to move and respond and react appropriately. So some of those hormones, you don't get them until you feel pain or discomfort. So the goal is not to get through labor without any discomfort. It's to minimize that discomfort to a manageable level and to respond with hopefulness and peace throughout our entire body, relaxing in response, knowing and working with our bodies in the process. Birth pain is helpful. I oftentimes will tell my clients it's like if you're sitting in an uncomfortable position, or you need to feel that discomfort to be able to adjust. Or if you burn your hand, it's the sensation of burning that causes you to move your hand. Oftentimes discomfort helps us to respond with action. And oftentimes intuitively, you will need to feel things to respond actively and to adjust in ways that your body needs you to move and to adjust to get your baby here, ways that no one can tell you to move. All right? So again, your ability to feel and to react is an awesome gift to you in labor. Again, this is why something like an epidural, it may gain you one thing, but it will lose you many things that are God-given tools and assets to help you get through the labor process safely and comfortably. So how does pain work in the body? It's going to be less intimidating if you fully understand it. Physiologically speaking, there is injury, which then sends a message to the brain to say, pain. Okay, but part of what we want to do is to dull this signal, which is a real possibility. Now, again, in birth, the pain doesn't come from an injury. I would rather say that the pain comes from adjustments that your body's making to get your baby here. But it sends a message to the brain to say, that hurts, or that's uncomfortable, pain. And what we want to do is to dull this signal, which is, like I said, a real possibility. So there's 3 significant ways that we'll talk about to dull the signals of pain, aside from the things that we've already learned. So firstly, hope-filled hyperfocus. That's what we talked about in a mindful birth. And so physiologically, you can use that hope-filled hyperfocus to focus in on anatomy and the body. As it pertains to the physiological process, we again talked in lesson 1 about what's happening in the body, and you familiarized yourself so that you can easily access peaceful picture hooks in your mind and visualize what your body's doing in a way that works with it. I would say it requires more strength to mentally focus than to simply do a bunch of stuff. So sometimes I'll see even natural birth advocates suggest that the way that mom should manage or respond to pain in labor is to just do a bunch of different things, just to move from one thing. It's like a birth ball, and then you're going to walk, and then you're going to get in the bathtub, and then you're going to get out, and then you're going to get the birth tub. And just those are great things to do, and they're great resources to have. But you just want to be careful that you don't have this mentality of distraction. Just try to distract away from the pain by adjusting the many things that you're going to do. I just think it's more helpful to let your activity be that of mental focus, of staying calm and focused in your relaxation. Again, it goes against our culture. We want to see ourselves making progress. I want to feel like because I did a lap around on the labor floor, that I am progressing. Well, that's a good thing to do. But remember, oftentimes it's those things that can't be shown on the outside. Sitting quietly, calmly relaxing each muscle of your body, breathing purposely throughout a contraction, focusing your thoughts on something, a peaceful picture hook that you've practiced, trained yourself to focus in on. Those things can't be seen by your labor and delivery nurse, can't be seen by your support team, but they go a long way to help your body make progress in labor. So use strategy as your greatest strength. Don't just, it's kind of like that, joke, look busy. God's coming, look busy. No, don't worry about looking busy during your labor. Worry about focusing. That does take a lot of work and a lot of strength. So beyond hope-filled hyperfocus, another way to dull the signal of pain is something we call the gate control theory. The gate control method is based on the idea that our nervous system is talking to our brain about pain. There's this type of gate in the spinal cord, and this gate decides which messages get to the brain. I've given you an image to try to help understand this. Is a very scientific idea. Let me help you understand it. Imagine that this gate in your spinal cord is a stoplight. All right. There are two pathways or roads leading to this stoplight. One of those roads processes sensory input that's either neutral or positive. So think massage or hand holding or a gentle rub. And then the other road or pathway carries negative stimulation or pain signals only to the brain. The idea is this: they can't both travel to the brain at the same time. If there's a green light for both pathways, what's going to happen? The cars are going to crash into one another. And so one gets a stoplight, one gets a red light, while the other gets a green light. So when we excite the neutral or positive touch nerve fibers, we can actually minimize the experience of physical pain because the pain message is going to be stuck at the red light while we're sending positive or neutral nerve stimuli through a constant green light. We see this play out on a regular basis in our daily lives. For example, when you bump your arm against something, you often will instinctually stop and rub that spot to get the pain to diminish. The idea is that you're stimulating those neutral or positive nerve fibers and sending a bunch of cars, if you will, through the stoplight, getting the other nerve, the pain stimuli nerve fibers, cars to have to stop and wait their turn. And the idea is to not give them a turn really at all. So during birth, you and your team could use this technique in a variety of ways. Examples might be massage, effleurage, which is like a light tickling massage that does figure eights on the back. Your spouse or your doula could do these kind of light, gentle, the fingertips only, dragging them across the skin surface. Warm water, the shower head. You'd sit on a birth ball in the shower while your husband holds the shower head, running it over your back, over your belly, or really any type of positive touch of any kind. Another technique that taps into your body's physical strength is going to sound less appealing, but hear me out. A second pain. And here's how it works. By causing a second pain, you can signal the body to release extra endorphins in the attempt to understand this second pain. How does this look in daily life? Well, you may have seen a kid fall down, skin his knee, and start crying. And usually a coach or a dad would go over and jovially punch him in the arm. And it's like, ow, my arm. Thanks a lot, Dad. Well, your knee doesn't hurt now, does it? This is the idea of a second pain. So you've probably seen it play out. By causing a second pain in the body during labor, preferably during a contraction, like counter pressure, let's say, which is particularly helpful during back labor, the body gets an extra dose of endorphins. Second pain exists. Sure, it's not like that second pain doesn't actually hurt, but it should exist for less time than the first pain and can minimize the first pain for up to 2 hours. So yes, you might want to keep this as somewhat of a last resort, but it's definitely a good last resort. So the ways that this might look would be something like sterile water injections, a cold water bucket, acupressure, squeezing rocks in your hands. In other cultures, it's often rocks. In our culture, we might grab a comb and actually squeeze it into the palm of our hand during a contraction. Ice pack. So I want to focus in on the sterile water injections. So for example, the sterile water injections would be injected in the small of your back, and they would be done during a contraction, and they would feel somewhat like a bee sting, which again, who wants a bee sting during contractions? Well, nobody really. But what it can do is that the body goes, whoa, what was that? Okay, I got to figure out what that is. So I'm just going to release a ton of endorphins to deal with this whole contraction business while I figure out what this is. All right? Now, again, these little bee stings, right, they might last for seconds, whereas your contractions are lasting a minute and a half. And you're worn out and you need some help managing, right? And this buys you 2 hours, potentially, of diminished pain. That likely can get you to the end of your labor, especially if you're in transition, and that's why you're feeling so exasperated by your discomfort. So it's really something to keep in mind. Now, with both of these techniques, it's important to recall that the comfort only lasts as long as the technique is being practiced. And oftentimes you're dependent on someone else to use this technique on you. And it's always possible that something which was working to dull the pain signal can become less effective over time. Still, it's good to have it in your toolbox. Therefore, I contend that using mental hyperfocus along with these, and even primarily, is your best bet. Keeping your mental focus throughout labor is paramount. Don't ditch your mental focus because your partner is going to be doing some massage. Use them both. While they're doing massage, you think about a happy place. You focus on your breath. Then when the massage stops working and you have to move on to something else, you won't feel panicked or frantic because you're out of tools. You can remain calm because it's not the only thing that you're doing. I want to take a moment and make a quick side note here. First of all, there's an importance of staying hydrated as pain management. It's kind of a joke among nurses, right? Like, hydration is the answer to everything. You go into the doctor and you've got the flu. Stay hydrated. Thank you. And I paid you the big bucks to tell me to stay hydrated. But it's likely you weren't, right? You have a cold virus, you have bronchitis, make sure you stay properly hydrated. You're running a long race, stay hydrated. You have a headache, have you had enough water lately? It seems that staying hydrated is really the accurate response to just about everything, which of course I can't help but think, the water, living water. Jesus called himself living water. We'll never thirst again. Our souls will never thirst again. It just puts that in new light. So when it comes to pregnancy and birth, though, I just want to point out the importance of staying hydrated, not only as just health, but also as pain management. So for your overall health, especially as you get to the end of your pregnancy, they're going to be keeping a close eye, your providers are, on your fluid levels. And fluid levels cycle every 3 hours. So all it takes is one afternoon of not keeping hydrated, and you go in for a check and your fluid levels are low, and that's going to set you on a path for interventions. And it's just not that hard to avoid. Drink, 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 drink lots of fluids while you're pregnant. But then also remember that our muscles need hydration. So what I like to say is imagine rubber bands, okay? Imagine that rubber band that's brand new. It is just stretchy and supple, no problem. Now imagine the rubber band that's been sitting in the back of your junk drawer for 2 years. And you go and you dig it out and you go to stretch it out and it just cracks in two. It's cracked out and it's dry. Okay, this is the difference between your muscles being hydrated and your tissue and your tendons being hydrated or not being hydrated. So not only does staying hydrated help your muscles to literally function, and what is a muscle doing a lot of work during labor? Your uterus. Those muscles, they need to effectively be able to do their work, and they have a lot of work to do. And so you staying hydrated helps those muscles do their job well. Not only that, but things like tearing during pushing. Your tendons, the more hydrated you are, the more easily they will stretch and allow for baby to gently move down and be delivered. Also, if you're not hydrated well, you are likely to get muscle cramps. That's painful. And the uterus is a muscle. Let's not let it cramp up. All right? Also, staying hydrated during labor, and dad, you can be getting mom a drink with a straw in it basically every few minutes throughout the entirety of labor. Because if mom's getting up and emptying her bladder often, not only does this get her laboring on the toilet, which is a wonderful place to relax your pelvic floor, because you've been trained to relax your pelvic floor basically since you were about 2. Your entire life you sit on the toilet, you relax your pelvic floor instinctively. So it's a wonderful place to labor. But not only that, the more you empty your bladder, it helps baby to move down each time you empty your bladder. So it's really just an all-around win to stay hydrated during labor. Get something that you enjoy to drink during your labor. If you hate juice and you hate water, get Gatorade. Get something you'll actually drink, okay? Also, the importance of breath as pain management. Breathing purposefully and intentionally, using something like hypnobirthing breath during labor. Not only does this reduce your tension, therefore reducing your pain because you're staying calm and relaxed, but it literally oxygenates your baby and your muscles. Again, your muscles need oxygen to effectively work, and your uterus needs adequate oxygen to do its job well. It is not uncommon for women to have C-sections simply because their uterus tires out. It's not been given what it needs. And you add on to that women aren't allowed to eat during labor. And my goodness, that muscle's being asked a lot of without being given much to do that work. So oxygenating your muscles helps them to do what they're intended to do. And the more purposefully you breathe and you're getting full, deep diaphragmatic breaths in during contractions, you're literally fueling that muscle, like just fueling it up to do that work during that contraction. But also remember that we see this in the Bible. Anytime breath is mentioned, it's equated with giving life. God breathed life into man. Think about that. Imagine that as you do these deep, full, purposeful breaths, you are literally giving life to your baby. I pray that between knowing that God has equipped you for this birth with great intention and with great care, and also knowing that there are so many dynamic ways to work with the fantastic design of your body, you feel empowered to be an active and strong participant in the birth ahead of you. There are some resources like the Worship While You Wait download that will help you do just that as you wait for baby to arrive. I pray you continue to practice peace with all these tangible resources on a daily basis, and I'm confident that when you need it most, you'll be able to easily access it. May God's grace and peace be abundant to you in the birth ahead. So what can you do leaving this last lesson? Well, make sure that you add the meditation, "He will never leave you," to your meditation practice from Deuteronomy. Download it to your playlist for labor on your phone. Also, alongside the meditation, include the coloring page as a peaceful prompt to be able to focus your heart and mind, and then hang it for encouragement during labor. And remember, the more senses you can integrate into your peaceful practice, the better. These are all prompts for relaxation that you can access in labor. You have a download called the Sensory Guide to Labor and Delivery to help you think about how to integrate your senses into your labor management. Also, don't forget to strengthen your visualizations on the anatomy piece, along with printing these diagrams to hang up during labor. Not only should you look at the diagrams that I've given you and hang them up in your labor room, but read books, go to the library, find YouTube videos that help you to see visually how baby moves down into the pelvis, how the cardinal movement as baby is delivered works, how those muscles work, just to understand visually the anatomy of it all. Don't forget to read over the 10 tips to help you worship while you wait for some great encouragement to wait peacefully on baby as they arrive. And don't stress about that due date. Instead, worship while you wait. May you enjoy your strong birth, empowered by the strongest of gods. I can't wait